Okay, thank you, Flourentzos. So we have received a number of questions. We are now in the phase of Q&A, and I believe Maria Kapsalaki has made an overview of these questions. Can we have a
yes,
look
Peter.
at the questions?
Yes, let me share my screen. So we have some questions. So the first question was for you, Peter, and the participant asks whether you take the usage of phase change materials into account in this program.
Okay. Yes. So let's say so for those who are not familiar, PCM means phase change materials. So it's a technology which I would say can increase thermal mass into the buildings. So in general, when the question is about the program, so in venticool is on itself not a specific topic of attention. There the focus is on ventilative cooling. But of course, as I think it was clearly highlighted in the presentation, in order to achieve appropriate summer comfort, by the more passive means in comparison with active cooling, so there basically you have three elements, that is thermal mass, solar shading, and ventilative cooling. And so clearly passive phase change materials can be a way for increasing the thermal mass. I would also like to stress that it's not, I think, a question, is it passive cooling versus active cooling? I think both of them can play the role. The idea is let's try to minimize the energy demand in summer comfort, whereby passive cooling and active cooling can be considered. And in that context, so clearly phase change materials can be considered as an element to come to this better indoor climate.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Now let's go to the questions for Per. So Per, the first question for you is the factor of speed of air circulation was mentioned in respect to perceived thermal comfort. Has it been found to have other influence, for example, restlessness?
Actually, I'm not aware of that. There are some research progressing, but it's mainly focusing on what velocities are acceptable and what is the relation between temperature levels and acceptable air velocity levels. I am not aware of any influence on other parameters.
Okay. So the second question for you, Per, is what are the specific parameters that building regulations should take into account when specifying ventilative cooling in non-residential buildings, and if there is a reference?
We are actually preparing, summarizing all the work on this in this overview report. So we will in a few months have a reference on this.
Okay.
What is important for taking ventilative cooling into account is, of course, that you have a proper calculation of the risk of overheating, and you have a proper calculation of the effect of ventilative cooling. And if we look at as well as proper requirements in the building regulations, using passive technologies, you have to take into account that you provide a different comfort situation than when you use mechanical systems, and this is not always taken properly into account in the regulations. Yes, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Per. Now let's go to the questions for Flourentzos. So the first question regards the free slab geocooling, Flourentzos, and a participant asked for you to explain it a bit further. Flourentzos?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, yes.
Yes, the free slab geocooling is just the building has floor heating, and so there is a heat pump heating heating the water in winter, and the water is circulating in the ground to run the heat pump. And in summer there is a mechanism that shunts the heat pump, and we only circulate the water in the ground and in the slab of the offices, and this reduces the floor temperature to 2 or 3 degrees, and reduces the air temperature up to 0.5, 0.8 degrees. It cannot work as a cooling system, an autonomous cooling system, but it adds to thermal comfort because we have a cooled floor, but it is cooled without any cooling machine. The second question.
The second question has to do with the 10 passive techniques that you referred to, and the participant is asking which are the low-hanging fruit from these 10 passive techniques. For example, the ones that have the best value for money ratio in respect to improving performance.
Okay, I start from the third question. Are those statistics general source or is our own? Everything is simulated there. All the calculations you see there are simulations that we did on the buildings, and not only simulations, but just to speak, all the 3 buildings are monitored, and the simulations are even pessimistic. So all these energy savings has been observed in reality. So. And then the low-hanging fruit from 10 passive techniques. Our approach is not to try to for every passive technique. This is general, not only for passive cooling, to find how much it costs and how much you gain. This is an approach for when you change a lamp or when you change a particular machine. But if you design a building, then you have to have a global approach. And then the question is it possible with the budget of the building to have these passive buildings? And if it is possible, the architects will make choices, maybe not to put a granite floor and put the anhydride screed. It is completely machinistic approach to try to find always payback periods, especially in the design phase. So all the 3 buildings are within, I ask the architects, are constructed within the general cost of standard buildings, and the choices of the architects are done so that the building is within the budget of the owner. This is my answer to the question.
Okay, thank you, Flourentzos. So I think we have another 2 questions that came later. One of them is, what are the specific parameters that building regulations should take into account of when specifying ventilative cooling in non-residential buildings? But sorry, no, we have already mentioned this question. And last question is whether ventilative cooling is considered free cooling in the context of EN 15603. Is it accounted for in the renewable energy ratio in EN 15603? And are there examples as to how its renewable energy contribution is determined towards a renewable energy ratio? So I think that this question is for Per. Per?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Actually, I don't know. I'm not sure what is written in EN 15603 about this. So I cannot answer the question.
Okay, thank you, Per. Alexander, I don't know if you have any further questions or if I missed anyone.
As far as I can see, no, but I don't know if either Peter or Flourentzos would like to comment on this last question before we finish the
I myself have no precise information. I think we can check it, for example, with the uploading. You probably will be able to get it.
I would like just to say that for the two questions there is no clear in the regulations that we have already overviewed. There is no clear way to take into account ventilative cooling, and our Annex 62 objective is to make recommendations how to do that. And I would like, as I have the stage, to add to my previous answer that we can say that low-hanging fruits are solar shading and ventilative cooling for the free cooling. Thank you.
Okay.
If I may ask to check the Q&A, you should be able to see it. There is one last question, I think, from about again the stats. I think this is for Flourentzos. Apparently, the answer that you gave was not clear to the user. Can you read it? I can read it. Okay, the 30% about fans are general stats or your own?
The 30%, I calculated that by simulating the energy demand of the building with by putting the setting temperature at 24 degrees, and then I calculated with 26 degrees, and then I calculated with 28 degrees, and then I compared the energy demand of the Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Yes.
Yes, yes.
So these are the results of 3 comparative simulations by changing the set point of this building. For sure, these calculations concern the particular building, which is well shaded, which is having good thermal mass, where all the potentials for free cooling we can exploit it. I cannot say the same answer for a building where a sun is going inside and so on and so on. But for a low energy building, the simulations are not arbitrary, because we tested the simulations with the monitoring results, and the simulations are validated, and I find these differences.
Okay, Alexander, there is one last question. I don't know if we have time for that, which is whether ventilative cooling should be considered renewable or not. So anyone would answer this question?
I believe that in terms of the Renewable Energy Sources Directive, that it's not part of, let's say, what is considered, let's say, renewables. I'm not 100% sure, but almost sure. So it is, as far as I believe, not part, so it cannot be used as, let's say, energy for meeting the targets in terms of renewable energy sources. But if somebody else has a different opinion, please react. But I think it's not part of it. The only nuance is, let's say, for example, heat pumps. That is included, and of course they use outdoor air, but that's not. So they also use the outdoor air to cool down, but it's in case of air-to-air heat pumps, but that's described as heat pumps. If there are no other comments, I think we probably should. Yeah.
No, I'll just comment that I agree, because I see ventilative cooling as a passive solution like solar shading or improved insulation and so on. So the main purpose is to reduce the load. and therefore it's not a renewable energy source.
Yeah. Okay, it's now, that's 5 minutes past 11 Brussels time, so we are, I think, at the end of this webinar. I hope it was interesting for you. So the recordings will be available in 2 weeks' time on the website of Built Up, so you can, let's say, see again these recordings of today, but also of all the previous webinars. I would like to thank all the presenters as well as those who have facilitated the workshop, the webinar, for their work, and of course all the participants who have attended this workshop. So thank you all, and I hope to hear or see you again at one of our next events. Thank you.